In 2009, he has many publications both in national and international journals on very important topics. Professor Roy, sir, please.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, chairpersons, for nice introduction, and especially I'm from NRS Medical College, Calcutta, and I'm proud that I'm here. At the outset, I must thank and congratulate Mr. Mitra, and I was really touched when I came here. Though this subject is not very close to my heart, but it has now become the closest of my heart because I'm basically an endoscopic surgeon in gynecology. But when he had phoned me and told me that you have to come, and then I thought, yes, this is an opportunity that I can do something. I'm standing at the edge, but I'm not here to defend on behalf of obstetrics and gynecologists, obstetricians and gynecologists. I'm here to share some of the facts, real figures and facts in front of you, and let us see that whether we can do something as obstetricians and gynecologists to this genuine cause. I found this is the correct definition or how you understand cerebral palsy. It is an umbrella-like term used to describe a group of chronic disorders impairing control of movement that appear in the first few years of life and generally do not worsen over time. And this is the key, that if you can diagnose early and you really, the team of doctors with a multidisciplinary approach act on it, then the life can be much, much better. Where do we stand? In the developing country, it is ranging from 2 to 3%, 2% in the developed countries. I did not find much documentation so far the Indian report is concerned. One documentation which I have found may be reliable, but it's a little alarming. The 2 per 100 live births, some form of cerebral palsy is happening. And at the moment, about 25 lakhs people in India are suffering from cerebral palsy. When it was first diagnosed by Dr. Little 150 years ago, an orthopedic surgeon, he gave the name Little's disease. But during the last 3 decades particularly, there are a lot of advancement so far as the obstetric and neonatal care are concerned. But unfortunately, you find the incidence of cerebral palsy has not been decreasing. Where could be the reason? What could be the reason? The reason is that we have now a spastic diplegia cerebral palsy increasing due to increasing survival of extremely premature baby. Extremely premature baby, what we understand, is less than 1 kg. Of course, very low birth weight baby also, less than 1.5 kg, that also contribute to this cerebral palsy. Other hand, with the care of prevention and care of cerebral palsy and a lot of advancement, and particularly RH isomnized baby, which used to be a cerebral palsy maybe 3 decades back, but now with the increased care, this has been significantly reduced. But the balance is there, so that we find that there are a lot of babies who are surviving, who are extremely premature baby. On the other hand, you are having little decrease in the other variety, dyskinic choriorethetic athetoid cerebral palsy. So really the incidence is not decreasing. Now, if we find that the incidence, again, I was very happy that you see only 10% of cerebral palsy results from intrapartum hypoxia. And you face, particularly the obstetricians all over the world, face the litigation problem. This is allegedly causing cerebral palsy by not preventing or treating intrapartum hypoxia. But that contributes only 10%, 9 to 10%. Rest, most of the cerebral palsies, the babies are born preterm, that is low birth weight baby, that is about 40%. And during antenatal period, other maternal factors which may lead to particularly infection and diabetes mellitus, Apla's syndrome, you have a list of diseases which can can lead to preterm labor, and you have a lot of preterm babies. So our main concern will be that how to prevent preterm babies to come in this earth, and that is the obstetrician's job. I totally agree, and we take the full responsibility that, well, it can be done. We can do it, but the problem is there are multifold problem. I will come one by one. So the prevention is better than cure, and prevention is the key. Now, how can we prevent this preterm birth? And that needs a lot of awareness. So we have 3 levels of prevention: primary prevention, secondary prevention, and tertiary prevention. So if I give you the data, this is like this, that world over, if you have a good neonatal care, you have an NICU facility available, yet 23 to 25 weeks baby delivered, 500 to 600 grams the baby weight, the chances, the prevalence is 25%. All infants which are less than 1,000 grams, the chances are 5 to 10%. 27 to 28 weeks and 1,000 grams baby, chances are 3%. But you see at 36 weeks, even in spite of that preterm labor is somehow prevented, but we are delivering preterm at 36 weeks for some reasons, still the incidence is 5 per 1,000. Now, if we summarize, you find the babies which are delivered at less than 28 weeks, prevalence is about 100 per 1,000. It's quite high. So more than 30% of children with CP had birth weight less than 1,500 grams. That's what I was trying to focus on, that we have to focus on very low birth weight baby and extremely low birth weight BLBW and ELBW babies. So what can we do antenatally so far as the prevention is concerned? So first and foremost is that prevention of premature birth. Most important lines of research in the last 2 decades that perinatal infection and inflammation causing brain damage in both term and preterm infants. So this is one area we must do a lot as obstetricians. Optimization of the medical disorders, as I have told you, that we have to counsel the patients that, look, you have this medical disorders. It's not only that there can be problems, but the main problem that you can deliver a premature baby. And liberal planning of cesarean section in breech delivery. You see now, over the years, since last 1 decade, the indications of cesarean section has been drastically changed, though we are facing a problem that more than 50% of babies are delivered by cesarean sections. Maybe obstetricians are also very, very scared of the litigations problem, but particularly in breech, it has been now limited. The indication is now limited, so there is liberal use of cesarean section. There are hardly 1 or 2 indications of normal delivery in a breech presentation, because once you do a breech delivery, there can be problem, particularly delivery of the aftercoming head. The baby's head may get stuck. You may need forceps delivery when there are indications. That might cause, if the obstetrician is not skilled, if it is the junior level, that might cause some kind of brain damage. That is why liberalization of cesarean section, particularly in malpresentation, that has been now coming up. Now, as I was talking about, how do we prevent it? Now, as we all know, 1/2 of all new cases of cerebral palsy arise from group of neonates born prematurely. Therefore, greater perseverance is likely to be needed for preterm birth, because the magnitude of the problem is underestimated by the public. The general public, they know, well, even there is a preterm delivery, there is a good neonatal care, so cerebral palsy and all this. So a preconceptional primary prevention is the key. It is very attractive because many risk factors are difficult to address successfully during pregnancy, and you can do the counseling, therefore. And public education interventions, you have to have, media or meetings, or at the grassroots level, people should be, they should be motivated that they will give through the panchayat, they will give the message that there is an inaccurate perception that the public and improved neonatal care, that the improved neonatal care has resolved the problem of preterm infants, and increased awareness to public that preterm birth, the leading cause of cerebral palsy. So for this, you need multiple media approach, and particularly at the grassroots level for the awareness. Preterm birth preventions, also there are certain small things which are very important for the lay people, that even it has been seen that uterine curettage or endometrial biopsy is associated with increased risk of subsequent preterm birth. So therefore, if there is an indication only, it should be done. It should not be a bread and butter for the obstetricians or gynecologists that in every case, in a small indication, you undergo DNC operations. Increased risk of preterm birth in single-term gestation, even if they are conceived after ART. So that counseling has to be done. It's not that, it will be like a normal a spontaneous conception, but particularly after assisted reproductive technology, if the conception happens, there is an increased chance of preterm birth. Now, cessation of smoking in our country, don't underestimate this fact, because a lot of people at the periphery, at the rural level, they take a lot of BDs also. So these tobaccos also can initiate preterm labor. So cessation of smoking, that awareness should be there, particularly during pregnancy, prevention of preterm, to reduce the preterm birth rate. Now, reduction of the higher multiple pregnancy. Nowadays, there is a mushrooming of ART clinics, so there is a policy that you don't transfer embryo more than 2. Previously, people used to, even nowadays, single embryo transfer is being adopted if you do a blastocyst culture. So that will reduce the chances of multiple pregnancy, and if you can reduce the chances of multiple pregnancy, so then in that case, the chances of preterm labor will be less. Then there are certain other policies like giving at least 14 weeks of paid pregnancy leave. Not only the government, but non-government organization also has to adopt this policy that during pregnancy, or if there is any problem, they should get some paid leave. Exemptions of night shifts and protection of workplace hazards. These are very important small tips, but that can prevent preterm labor. And early referral system. We must stress on this point. Still believe, and most of you know, the referral system over here is terribly bad. And still there are places where you find this kind of the transport system. They will transfer the patient to a center with carrying the patient to the center. So these things are to be improved. It's not just in one area. There are multiple areas where even the NGOs, even the government organizations can look at, so that we can really take care of pregnant women. Then somebody was talking about nutrition, and my previous speaker was also trying to highlight this point, that nutrition is only, you find the anemia in our country is almost 70 to 80%, in spite of everything government has been doing for last almost 20 years, but still the incidence of anemia is not being reduced. The real problem is here. It is too early, too many, and too frequent. You see, most of the time you find to go to the periphery, there is no family planning, and then this girl, this lady at the age of 21 years, she has delivered already 1, 2, 3, 4, and she is pregnant again. So this is, this is a proven fact that routine administration of folic acid to reduce the risk of birth defects. One literature shows that omega-3 polysaturated fatty acid in women at risk of preterm birth showed significant reduction. Now, secondary prevention, there are certain preconception interventions. If you find that, well, there are Mullerian defects which are causing preterm delivery, that can be corrected surgically. Identification of medical risk factors like diabetes, seizures, asthma, hypertension, Apla syndrome, and you do the interventions right there if you find, and then that will also reduce the preterm birth. Prophylactic antimicrobial treatment is of no help, but if you have bacterial vaginosis in the patient, then you should treat that health. Tertiary prevention, Early diagnosis of preterm labor is very important, where ultrasound plays a major role. Even there are recent advancements that you can really see the fibronectin level in the cervical fluid, and then you diagnose early. Of course, clinical judgment is most important. Administration of corticosteroid, which everybody believes, and it is evidence-based beneficial. Use of procolytics drugs to prolong pregnancy, it is beneficial. Now, one drug, that magnesium sulfate, is the best choice, because magnesium sulfate not only prevents that preterm labor and you can prolong the pregnancy, but it has been proved that there is a neuroprotection of the newborn baby if you give magnesium sulfate. Rapid fetal blood lactate measurement, if you find that fetal pH, the scalp pH is more than, and pH is less than 7.2 and lactate level is more than 5 millimole per liter, then it is that the baby is at distress and you do intervention. Delayed clamping of the umbilical cord, that also reduces the brain hemorrhage, and this can be up to 50%. Caffeine therapy and aggressive phototherapy for hyperbilirubinemia, this in detail the pediatrician is going to discuss, I am very sure. So this all will cause better neurodevelopmental outcome. Now, these are the situations where ultrasound can help. If you find that this baby hydrocephalus and this is microcephaly, there is agenesis of corpus callosum, there is leukomalacia. So this level 2 ultrasound during antenatal period, if you diagnose early, before 20 weeks of period gestation, we know that if these babies are delivered, somehow they can develop their cerebral palsy, and you can do some interventions before that. Now, this is, I wanted to say, somebody was asking, this is very recently, Purjak is the pioneer in this, that he has done some scoring system, particularly in intrauterine growth retardations, where you can really, by 4D ultrasound, you can see the smiling of the fetus, you can see the finger movements, you can see the movements of the hand, you can see even the opening of the eye, opening of the eyes, opening of the mouth. So this can be observed, and he has made a scoring system. I have not put it in detail over here, and if you go to the net, you will find, and this is very interesting, and he found that if the score is 0 to 5, it is abnormal, it is 0 to 13, borderline, 14 to 20, it is normal. So normal, it is important, and this can be interpreted in terms of management of a IUGR patient and intervention early. Genetic insight, novel CP genes are now there. 6 genes are identified so far, but this is in the experimental phase, and we know that the time is coming that this experiment and identifications of the gene will translate in terms of prevention. Other antenatal approach, I have 3 more slides, sir. Other antenatal approach for preventions, that many people, I still see that they do not do even RH typing of the patient, blood group and RH typing. They are not given antenatal injections of steroid, or for antenatal injections of immunoglobulin or postnatal injections of immunoglobulin to prevent RH isoimmunization. So that is important. Smoking, I have talked about. Screening for the treatment of asymptomatic bacteriuria, I have talked about. Antiplatelet drugs to prevent preeclampsia, which is also cause of preterm delivery. 17-alpha progesterone, caproid, and cervical sarclage in case of preterm labor. Transvaginal ultrasound for cervical length. Calcium channel blocker and atosiban in preterm labor, and magnesium sulfate for preterm labor. Now, this is very important, that whether you do a continuous CTG or intermittent auscultation during labor, this is the part which you can prevent 10% of cerebral hypoxia causing to cerebral palsy. Routine LSCS for all BLBW babies preferred. Routine LSCS for ELBW babies, these are beneficial. There are restricted indications of vaginal breech delivery, liberal LSCS for preterm breech delivery, liberal use of LSCS in presence of meconium stained liquor. Decision delivery interval, this is being suggested by ACOG, it should be 30 minutes. If it is more than 30 minutes, it can cause problem that by the time you do cesarean section, the baby's brain damage can be there. But though it is idealistic, but it is not realistic. detection of fetal acidosis, and delivery at the tertiary level, early referral. Postnatal, I have already said, but one thing I want to say, pediatrician also believes in that evidence of steroid to neonate, postnatal steroid to decrease the lung inflammation and to decrease the bronchopulmonary dysplasia that increases the risk of cerebral palsy. I purposefully put this slide. You know, I think many of you know that she was delivered and she had some problem and she was a patient of cerebral palsy. Willpower with early diagnosis and a multidisciplinary approach, she was present in the Miss USA contest, and she has now her own area where she does the CNN headline news, etc., etc. So this gives us encouragement that, well, we must do something. In spite of everything, there will be some cerebral palsy patients will be delivered, and we all, as a multidisciplinary approach, that can really do something for this cerebral palsy patient. And in conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, medicine appears to be one of the few areas of life where zero tolerance for any bad occurrence is the rule, but not exception. This is true even when the healthcare team did not cause or contribute to the adverse outcome. Cerebral palsy is mistakenly attributed to acts of omission or commission by obstetricians, but we can't help it. Various awareness programs for general public regarding cerebral palsy is most important for prevention. In developing countries, approximately 1/2 of cerebral palsy occurs in prematurely born babies. We must do something about it. Recent advances in neuroimaging, opening of new genetic window, and prediction of cerebral palsy are the keys to success. And therefore, the way is not in the sky, the way is in the heart. And I thank you for your patient hearing. We must all together can turn the tide. Thank you very much.